Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Yet another woman makes history in the region. St. Lucia appoints its first female acting commissioner of police. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Wednesday, 19th October 2022. Details when we return.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Welcome back. St. Lucia's Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre announced the appointment of a new female police commissioner on Monday in light of the former Commissioner Milton Désir's tenure coming to an end. Jason Darius of the DBS News World reports.
Prime Minister and Minister for National Security Philip J. Pierre on Monday highlighted to the press that Milton Désir's tenure as police commissioner had ended, while he announced the appointment of Ms. Cressida Descartes-Pelleus to serve as acting commissioner of police.
Commissioner of Police, Mr. Milton Désir, has officially come to the end of his tenure and he is no longer Commissioner of Police. I want to thank Mr. Désir for his service to St. Lucia and his service to the St. Lucia Police Force. Mr. Désir has been a veteran officer and we thank him for his contribution to law enforcement in St. Lucia. This morning it's my pleasure to introduce to you Mistress Cressida Descartes-Pelleus, who is the new acting commissioner of police. As you will see from her profile, Mrs. Pelleus is well suited to take on the new role, and we look forward to her in her new role as assistant commissioner of police.
Following his high praise for Mr. Désir, Prime Minister Pierre introduced Mrs. Pelleus as the acting commissioner of police, the first woman in the island's history to head the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. Commissioner Pelleus joined the RSLPF in 1988, serving in several capacities in the organization, including the Marine Unit, Immigration Department, Territorial Policing, Information and Technology Unit, Police Complaints Unit, Regional Security System, and Interpol. Mrs. Pelleus possesses a Bachelor of Management Studies and a Certificate in Public Administration from the University of the West Indies. She was appointed to the post of Assistant Commissioner of Police in 2016. Commissioner Pelleus thanked Prime Minister Pierre for placing confidence in her to head the RSLPF at such a challenging time.
I want to thank the Honourable Prime Minister for the confidence he has placed in me to head the organization at such a challenging time. Let me assure you, sir, that I will do my best. I have not met my executive. I'm looking forward to meet them soon. I'm looking forward to the support of the men and women of the organization to lead, whilst I lead the organization. According to Prime Minister Pierre, Mrs. Pelleus will head the force during the transition to a new police commissioner, a post that will be advertised at the end of a contract. For the DBS News World, Jason Darius reporting.
Andre Huey of SKN Newsline has a follow-up report on the IMF's recent meeting at which Governor of the ECCB, Dr. Timothy Antoine, attended.
It's Nevis Anguilla, National Bank, and Hope Economics. Well, as we are coming to the close of these meetings, the Caribbean leaders that are here to discuss quite a number of issues. Of course, climate financing is one of them, but one of the big issues that they're here to discuss is delisting and blacklisting. A number of Caribbean countries from time to time have been blacklisted as being tax havens by countries in the OECD, particularly developed countries that would blacklist the countries in the Caribbean. Now, the Caribbean countries, the leaders, are kicking up a storm against this because they believe that these blacklistings are unfair to Caribbean countries when there are other countries around the world that have that are even bigger tax havens than those in the Caribbean, and they're not facing the same pressure that small countries in the region are facing. We spoke to the governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank about this, as well as the Minister of Finance from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Camilo Gonzalez. Now, both of them have basically indicated that there is a tinge of possibly classism, racism, however you want to describe it, in the way this matter is being treated and the way Caribbean countries are being dealt with. This was raised at the IMF annual meetings this week by both the governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank and, of course, Mr. Gonzalez in the interview we had with him. Here are comments from both representatives.
That was not discussed today, but it's an irrefutable fact that most of the countries that are being blacklisted happen to be African descent. I don't think there's any question about that. I would leave you to conclude on why that is so, but that's a fact. And it is a very vexing issue for our region, but it was not discussed particularly today because, like I said, inflation was really the focus. Inflation and climate, I would say those were the two main issues that we've discussed for the last 2 days.
The blacklist, as it currently stands, objectively, is a list of non-white countries with limited power, either in terms of population or in terms of wealth or in terms of military. And the history of blacklists and the use of blacklists, both by the United States and the European Union, has been a history of leveraging that power against the powerless, and historically against countries that are non-white. And there's no two ways about that. That's a factual statement.
So you heard it there from the governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank and the Minister of Finance from St. Vincent and the Grenadines speaking on the issue of delisting and blacklisting. Of course, we'll continue to monitor this as we go along. Coming to you from Washington, D.C. at the IMF headquarters for SK Newsline, I'm Andre Huey.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Food security and agriculture remain a focus for the administration of Philip Davis in the Bahamas. More in this ZNS News item.
From crime to agriculture, efforts underway to slash the nation's $1 billion food import bill by 25% by 2025. During his recent televised national address, Prime Minister the Honorable Philip Davis says food security and agriculture remains a focus for his administration.
Sustainable Food Security Grant will fund agriculture and fisheries through the SBDC. These are grants, not loans. We consider them to be important investments in our nation's food security. Farming and fishing businesses, which are 100% Bahamian-owned, will have the opportunity to fund construction, heavy-duty equipment, and vehicle supplies and insurance. Farmers will also benefit from duty-free concessions for equipment, land leases for agribusiness purposes, electricity rate reductions, and subsidies. After 4 long years, we reopened packing houses in New Providence and Hatchet Bay, Eleuthera, so our farmers can access seeds, plants, fertilizers, and planning support. We are digitizing the process of getting licenses and permits to speed efficiency.
Over in Jamaica, government there signs an agreement with the International Finance Corporation. This and more as Andrea Chisholm of TVJ Business Day reports.
The government has signed a financial advisory services agreement with the International Finance Corporation IFC. The deal was signed by Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark and Managing Director of the IFC, Maktar Diop. It will provide advisory support on the execution of the North Coast Highway project valued at more than $800 million. Advisory services include finalizing the plans, project structuring and implementation, as well as expanding the Miami Bay to Salem, Sea Castles to Greenwood, and Greenwood to Discovery Bay roadways. Technical, legal, financial, environmental, and social studies are also part of the deal. The IFC will also help to design the bidding and tender process for the multi-million US dollar project. Finance ministers in the Commonwealth are calling for increased fiscal support to help curb some of the economic challenges. At a meeting in Washington on Wednesday, the ministers said targeted fiscal support is needed to reduce the negative impact of tight monetary policies and COVID-19 restrictions. They have also called for strategies to address the backlog in the supply chain. Jamaica's Exim Bank has partnered with the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association (JMEA) to provide loans for micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. The $100 million Exim e-commerce funder is expected to assist improve digital footprint. The loan is open to businesses registered for 2 years or more, members of the JMEA, and small businesses that want to increase sales and marketing locally and abroad. Each business can access between $1 million and $5 million. The facility will fund up to 80% of the specific project with up to 5 years to repay. The interest rate starts at 5%.
The indemnity agreement between King's Counsel Vincent Nelson and the state of Trinidad and Tobago must be thoroughly explained, says attorney at law Martin George, who feels there are some disturbing gaps for which clarity is needed. TV6's Lucia has more in this report.
Attorney at law Martin George is unsettled about what he believes is a lack of information relating to the indemnity agreement offered to King's Counsel Vincent Nelson in the corruption kickback case against former Attorney General Annan Ramlogan and former UNC Senator Gerald Ramdeen.
There remain several troubling and disturbing and unanswered questions as it surrounds this entire imbroglio and debacle with this indemnity agreement and Vincent Nelson, King's Counsel.
George finds it unacceptable, as he says the public has a right to know the specifics about the agreement inked under the tenure of Faris Al-Rawi when he was Attorney General.
We need to get a fulsome, wholesome clarification and explanation from the agents and officers of the state, whether those who currently hold positions or previously held the positions. We need some clarity.
According to the attorney, it's a matter which cannot be allowed to be swept under the carpet for what he says are certain serious questions being brought to surface.
Questions now arising as to whether there was some level of governmental or political interference in this entire process. And if that's the case, that's very troubling and disturbing.
He is certain that citizens would want to see justice served if in fact there was any wrongdoing, which should be determined through due process.
That their cases are tried and a decision is made one way or the other. The public has absolutely no confidence left in the judicial system of Trinidad and Tobago if it is that things like this continue to happen and continue to bedevil the administration of justice in Trinidad and Tobago.
George is calling on the government to provide clarity on the matter to aid in restoring public confidence in the justice system. He says with respect to the justice system, there cannot be one rule for the rich and powerful and another for the poor and indigent. George labels what has transpired thus far a scandal.
Because it's nothing short of a scandal. This scandal exposes that there is no equality or equity in terms of the administration of justice as it occurs in Trinidad and Tobago.
Alicia Boucher, TV6 News.
Hubbard's is once again innovating the way you shop with its new online store, providing 24-hour shopping convenience. You can shop now for appliances, hardware, houseware, building material, and more. Free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at hubbardshardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.